right, mate. Raticate. Raticate. Do you have any initial thoughts or memories on Raticate?
So Raticate is another one that I didn't really use in the games. Um, Again, it was one that I like wanted to because like it seemed cool until I was using it, and I'm like, oh, this isn't that good. Um, it's not super effective against anything. It does have that powerful Hyper Fang, but I think having one good normal
Mm,
type move is not enough to carry a Pokemon
mm,
in like through your team to the end of the game. It's good until you have something else.
yeah.
Um, my key memories of Raticate are the one that Ash traded his Butterfree for on the SSN,
Yeah, that's my main one as well.
which seemed like a cool little Raticate. And I quite liked the way the guy convinced Ash to trade it by being like, by trading Pokemon, like you keep your relationship with your Pokemon, but now I get to look after it, and it's about making friends with people around the world, and by having each other's Pokemon, we stay friends because I feel like that's the only way they could get trading into the show and not really undermine uh Ash's whole like, oh, I have this unique relationship with all my Pokemon
Mm,
storyline. Um, so I thought that was interesting.
yeah.
But then I thought like the bit where he was like, yeah, now it's my Butterfree's turn, and a Raticate comes out and he was like, oh fuck. That was quite funny.
Yeah.
And it illustrated quite well the sort of actually I'm trying to be a particular type of trainer, and the type of trainer that I am at this point in time has a Butterfree.
Yeah.
And then Butterfree fucked off like what 3 episodes later, I don't know.
Mm.
Um,
So,
not long.
so there you go. Hindsight being 2020, he should have kept that
Yeah,
fucking
could
Raticate.
have kept that Raticate. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but
Although maybe that creepy old man would have forced the Butterfree to stay with him. Who knows?
yeah, I mean, I've always had this kind of theory about like trading, in that I've always felt like. So do the this might show me as being someone who has dealt with depression and abandonment issues. But I've always had this kind of thought that when you trade the Pokemon and the Pokemon evolves, the Pokemon almost goes through this kind of like mindset of like, oh, you didn't want me, well then I will show you, like, like what I could have done for you, and then
Yeah,
evolve for that reason.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I've always kind of felt that way about like these kind of evolution specific Pokemon. Um, my main, I do remember having a Raticate at some point, like and using it and being like, oh, Hyperfang is pretty good, but I feel like my memory of that is so brief that I don't remember having it at all for any long period of time. So I must have had it for a period and then gone. Oh, this Raticate's getting battered now, so
Yeah.
I'm just gonna get rid of it now. So
It's one of those ones that is like it's kind of on Pidgeotto's level because it evolves relatively young, and it's like it's good for the time that you have it, but in order to justify keeping it on your team, it needs a third evolution,
yeah,
really.
yeah,
Raticking.
yeah,
Um, and but no, I think the other key Raticate that stands out for me is obviously Blue's Raticate,
mm,
which he has on his team up until you see him in Lavender Tower, and then there's that whole, rumor that you kill Blue's Raticate when you defeated it. He didn't have time to get back to the Pokemon Center to heal it, which I don't. I mean, there's no weight to it really.
mm,
Team Rocket was also on that ship. They could have killed Raticate. Um, he could have just put it in the PC and been using other Pokemon because he preferred them.
yeah.
Like, there's plenty of reasons, but I do think the kind of dark undercurrent of the rumor is um what sort of hooked people to it, give it a bit of a mature edge.
Yeah. Well, that's so. I was thinking about that on the in the build up to this episode, and I was like, so that's the other main Raticate, and and like because it's not definitive canon, I was like I don't think of it as much as the Ash traded Raticate, but um, I think that there's a certain element of the fandom that kind of want Pokemon to be like darker than it is, and that's an example of them
Yeah.
trying to do that, and that's one of the kind of ones where I feel there's a tiny bit of kind of ground in that you next see him at the at the lavender tower, um,
Yeah.
but like what you said, there's no actual solid kind of ground with it. I mean, I used to really like Pokemon conspiracy theories back in the day. I mentioned it earlier on in the stream about how I used to have a podcast, and it was a conspiracy theory podcast where we would like similar to this, where we would like look at different conspiracy theories and just kind of break them down and stuff like that. And I did used to really like Pokemon conspiracy theories. I like the. Have you heard the Gengar Clefable one?
Yep.
Yeah, that they are like they're like the shadow of each other, and I mean I think there's potentially a bit of kind of credence in that one. Particular,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean particularly if I mean Gengar doesn't really. I mean none of the ghost types really fit any like reason why they would turn into each other. So
Mm.
I could believe that early on they were like, okay, so we've created Clefable, let's create like a shadow version of Clefable, and then that just because there was only three ghost types, they were like, okay, well that's an evolution line now. Um,
Yeah.
um, and the other one, I mean, I made a little bit of a reference to it again in here.
Mm-hmm.
The the Cubone conspiracy, which again I assume you know that it's a Charmander.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard that one. That is a child. Or maybe also I've heard it could be a baby Kangaskhan
Yes. Yes. Both.
because the Cubone looks a lot like the baby in the Kangaskhan's pouch, but
Mm,
obviously with a thing over its head, which
yes.
is an idea.
Yes. I think that there is. I think that there is. I think that there's. Um, I think there's weight to either one in that. So Kangaskhan being the like kangaroo stroke mother type Pokemon, and it's got the baby, and they could have done like a split evolution, but I'm guessing that if they'd have wanted to do that, the first generation hardware wouldn't have been quite able to kind of do something like that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
so I think that I think there's probably more weight in it being a Kangaskhan, or at least early on being a Kangaskhan. But I think that there is also weight in it that it does look a lot like a Charmander,
Yeah.
and
But
the like horns on its head looking the same as like Charizard
a little
has.
bit like a Charizard.
Yeah,
Yeah. I do think I like this conspiracy theory. But I do think because like Kangaskhan's also a bit pointy. But I also think these similarities are very easily explained away by they had limited options for what they could do with
mm,
sprites, so a lot of the Pokemon look similar anyway. Um, because like going back to what we were saying about things like Galarian Meowth not having to be a Meowth, but it could have like a fun story about we think these Pokemon are related, but we can't figure out how, the same way that Diglett and Wiglet do.
mm,
Some Pokemon YouTuber a decade or so ago did a video about uh evolution between Pokemon species, like not just immediate evolution, but regional variants and things like that in the Pokemon world, and how like Squirtle and Lapras could have a common ancestor because they have similar shells.
mm,
And then whereas Squirtle, when it evolved, grew like guns on its shells, Lapras lost its ability to evolve and developed flippers, and the guns turned into the points on its shell. And I'm like, that's pretty cool.
mm.
That's a pretty cool idea. And it makes sense that like similar color scheme, the shell makes sense. If they had like a common ancestor
Mm,
that was like smaller and like had like flippers
yeah,
and one crawled out onto the land and got feet and became Squirtle, which then evolves into Wartortle and Blastoise, but one sort of stayed in the ocean, so its flippers got bigger, which meant it as a whole got bigger and it became Lapras. I think that's a
yeah,
fun idea of how different Pokemon can be related. And I think it kind of ties into how, Cubone could have been a different Pokemon before its mother died, but we just don't know.
mm,
Um,
yeah. I tell you this,
and yeah,
I've always
fun
felt
to speculate on.
I've always felt like Marowak is not as good as Cubone.
All right. I like what's it? Alolan Marowak,
Yeah,
the fire spinning one. I think that's fucking cool.
yeah, it is. No, it's cool. I just think, of it's all right. It's the same, but now its head is fused on the skull. How very
Yeah.
anticlimactic.
Yeah. So I think a lot of them in Generation 1 though are like Voltorb is a ball, Electrode is a bigger ball, Seal is a seal, Dugong is a bigger seal. Like Generation 1 is kind of shit.
Mm,
Like comparatively. Like even the starters, it's a lizard, it's a bigger lizard, it's the biggest lizard. Like it's a turtle, it's a bigger turtle, it's the biggest turtle. Like they're not putting a lot of effort in the first generation. Rattata, it's a rat, now it's a bigger rat. Like Pidgey, it's a little bird, it's a medium-sized bird, it's a big bird that can fly to the moon. Like they're not Spearow, it's a little bird, it's a bigger bird. Like they're not trying that hard with this generation. And I feel like it didn't matter at the time because you didn't have any other generation to compare it to. But then I think people get like picky about things and it's like you need to be consistently picky or not picky at all.
mm.
And no one is consistently picky. Um, so
Yeah, I mean
I don't care. I
it's
feel
like
like when people go, "Oh, I'm gonna nitpick this thing," and I'm like, "Why? This is consistent with Pokemon like designs and ability and content. It is consistently kind of naff. Just accept it because like just because you're just realizing now."
yeah. Well, I mean, I've said even as far back as the deep dive that we did that was like that became the genesis for this podcast. I remember. I don't know if you remember this, but there's like a segment of being like, "Oh, what's your spicy take?"
What's his name?
And
Yeah.
and I remember my spicy take being, and prepare to watch our viewers flock from the channel in outrage that Gen 1 is objectively the worst generation. Um, and
Yeah.
yeah, and
Like it's the one that they put the least like they've done the least developmental work on.
mm, yeah, well, I mean that's it. Like the you're exactly correct. There's the least amount of actual development into the kind of artistic and kind of creative. I'm sure that if you were to look at the actual time spent on each game, it probably has the most amount of like development time. But
Yeah.
every other generation builds on generation 1 in some way,
Yeah.
and as such,
And
they are inherently better because they have got Gen 1 to like build off of.
mm, exactly.
Yeah,
Like I think that's a reasonable thing to say. And I think anyone who's like, oh, it's been going downhill since Gen 1, just like hasn't played Gen 1 since they were little and don't understand that you remember the world as a better place when you're a child because you don't understand how horrible it really is.
yeah. I mean, there's uh,
That was an extreme way to make that point, but
yeah.
fuck it, I'm sticking with it.
Well, I mean, little did we know that Talking Trubbish was going to become a philosophy channel, but
I mean, I'm on it. I'm surprised it hasn't become more of a capitalist rant channel already. We're 20 episodes in, and I might have done like one.
This time, mate.
Oh,
Um,
oh, it's gonna happen.
um, but yeah, like my kind of um, thoughts with I mean, and like nostalgia is like, it's like I think a lot of people get blinded to their own nostalgia, because I think that there's so many like genres of entertainment that you can like apply that to. Like loads of people say, "Oh, music's rubbish these days," and I normally say to them, "No, what you're saying is music isn't targeted at me anymore."
Yeah, my musical tastes haven't evolved since I was 19. Just like, do you think 19-year-olds listen to good music? Shut the fuck up. Your music taste sucked as well.
Yeah.
Like, and also it's like, well, are you going out of your way to seek out good music? Are you looking up, bands that are active now, creating new cultural moments in the genres that you like? Or are you just listening to the top 40, which is like, it is corporate shit?
Mm.
Like, of course it sucks. It's like a bunch of writers trying to think about what's going to sell, which usually means they're targeting around how likely it will be that it can get bought by advertisers to play in the background of adverts, or they'll be trying to figure out if it can be made into a TikTok because that's how songs go viral these days.
Mm.
And it's like, are you actually seeking out artists creating music that reflects your view of the world? Or are you just like listening to the churned out corporate shit and assuming that that's representative of everything? Because, like, I get it, it's harder to do the work, but it's worth it if you do the work
Yeah.
because then you get to listen to some good music.
Yeah. But again, like I say, you can say this about like all sorts of
Capitalist
stuff.
rant.
You
It
know,
happened.
there we go. I told you there was time. But like I say, like you can say it about like basically any, like people say it about wrestling, people say it about music, people say it about um like I mean I was thinking of the other day, right? So people say, oh, they don't make stuff like they used to anymore, and it's like, well, if that's the case, where's all this old shit? Because I
Yeah,
can't see fuck all of it.
yeah. I think there is some of it because you did get people in like you'd have like grandmas in the 90s who still had the fridge they bought when they were like a new mum. I think planned obsolescence is a relatively new um phenomenon and I hate it. And I feel like it might because like, before the days of online shopping, if you bought something, it had to last.
Mm.
Or you had to wait for another door-to-door salesman to come by and flog you a new Hoover. Like it had to last. Um, because you didn't know when you were going to be able to go and get another one. And now you can replace things really easily, so they make them really breakable. So I do think there is some validity to that. But yeah, people using it as an excuse to complain that nothing is good these days. It's like, look, I'm the bitterest, most miserable cunt you'll ever meet, okay? I constantly make jokes about how I'd be happier if I wasn't born because this world is so bad and like the eternal void is probably preferable to like the pain of existence under capitalism. And I'm still like, yeah, but some of the songs bang though, innit? Like you can find the good things if you look for them,
Yeah.
which is a surprising optimistic um uh approach for me.
Mm. Well, I went to the Banksy exhibition. Um, it was like in Manchester maybe 4 or 5 months ago now.
5 months.
And there was like this quote up that I liked, and it was something like, "Yeah, let's destroy capitalism, but until it's gone, we might as well at least buy some things that we like in the meantime."
Yeah, it's like if you have to live under capitalism, may as well, you know, not deprive yourselves of the bits that aren't awful,
Mm,
as long as they're not causing any terrible harm to anyone else.
mm. Um,
So Raticate.
yes, Raticate. I was thinking, how do we bring it around? Should we have a look at their dex entries?
Let's do it.
Let's get it up. Okay, doke. So we've got Raticate here. I'm just looking at the picture. I feel like Raticate has never really changed their kind of like the image that I can see there is very much how I like always imagine Raticate. Oh, I mean, whilst I'm thinking about it, you mentioned it on the like kind of promo for this. It changes colour.
Yeah.
Why has it changed colour?
Well, here's the thing. What I get less is that, well, I get why it changes colour because it comes out at night now. So Raticate and Rattata in Alola have to be able to blend in with the shadows, whereas in the original Kanto designs goes from purple to brown.
Yeah.
So it goes from a non-normal rat colour
Yeah.
to a normal rat colour, whereas these change colour to go to Alola, which makes sense, but they change to the same colour.
Yeah.
And I didn't know if it had, like, I wondered why it didn't go from, like, a dark purple to the black, because that could be quite cool. I
Yeah.
reckon that'd get a lot of the goths on side.
Yeah. Or even like if you had Rattata as brown and then Raticate as black.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah.
it is odd that it goes
Or
from
even like a dark foresty green if it lives in the forests of Alola, because it's based on Hawaii, isn't
yeah,
it? I think that'd be a cool color for it to be.
yeah,
Although then it'd look like it was a grass type.
yeah,
But then I think they should, like, fuck with your expectations more.
yeah. Or they could have made it grey, like grey, like
Yeah.
mice are often grey. Um, but I mean, I don't know if you know this, but it's like purple is a very rare colour.
Yeah.
Like that's the reason why we associate it with royalty, because only royals could afford the like purple pigmentation because it's rare. So
Yeah.
it's an odd design choice that Rattata.
And it's why it doesn't appear in any national flags either.
Yeah, because it would be
It's
too expensive
too
to.
expensive to mass produce.
Yeah,
If you wore a purple robe, it meant you were like top tier elite.
yeah. And again, like the like the British Crown jewels, like with the with the purple velvet inside. Again, that's
Yeah.
like links to all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's odd that they picked Rattata to be purple.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's just a cute color. I think maybe it's like, right, what haven't we used too much to make it stand out? What can we do to make it look like it's not a normal rat?
Mm.
Purple.
But then why not make Raticate purple as well?
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like, why? That was what my question was. It's like, why did it go from a funky color, funky unnatural color
Mm.
that makes it stand out from regular rats to being a regular color, where it could just be a big fat rat?
Yeah,
And then I get why the Alolan one changed color from Kanto to Alolan,
mm.
but like, why did the Alolan one not change color between
Yeah.
Rattata and Raticate?
Maybe they were worried about us being like, well, if it's purple, why isn't it poison type?
Maybe, maybe.
Because
But then, yeah, that
that's
is a
what I
theme.
associate with poison types, like
Yeah.
like blues and purples. Um, um,
Do you think maybe Rattata is purple? The Kanto Rattata is purple because if an Ekans sees a big bunch of Rattata, it will mistake it for other Ekans and leave it alone. But if it just sees one Rattata, it knows it's too small to be an Ekans and it'll eat it. Or
maybe
is it a defense mechanism where if a Pidgeot or a Fearow sees a Rattata, big bunch of Rattata, they'll mistake it for an Ekans or an Arbok and not eat it. They'll
now.
think that big bunch of purple could be a Rattata or it could be an Ekans and I could get
Yeah.
eaten.
Now that there is the kind of lore that I am all over. and like if it is not already a theory, like that needs to be on like Pokemon conspiracy theories, because I love that. The moment you were saying, because, and again that's like linked to like real world, because I don't know if you know, but so the reason why cats when they're angry, their ears go back and they like start
Hmm.
hissing. It's to emulate a snake, because lots of animals have got like a subconscious fear of snakes. So they make themselves look more like a snake when they are like feeling like super threatened.
That's cool. I think a fun Pokemon would be like a pointy cat
Mm.
that, like a long, slinky, pointy faced cat, and it's like people argue based on it only comes out at night and it's really difficult to see, and like people argue whether it's a cat or a snake.
Yeah, that's good.
That'd
Or
be a cool Pokemon. Carries itself very low to the ground, but with
yeah,
long legs that are actually hunched up. I think that'd be a cool Pokemon. I'm coming up with lots of cool Pokemon ideas today.
you
I'm on
are
a fucking roll.
like honestly, Pokemon Company, employ us. Why are you not employing us? Give us those 30,000 views. Um,
I don't want their 1% of viewers' views, actually. I'm quite happy with our 200% of subscribers' views.
oh,
Fuck
but
Pokemon.
believe me, when I talk about giving us those 30,000 views, I'm talking those 30,000 views plus all the people in the chat that we know are like our number one fans. Even if we had those 30,000 views, they would still be at the top.
Yeah, yeah, that is true. We've got our loyal regulars and we love them very much.
Indeed, we do.
Shall we get back to these Pokédex entries? Because uh, like we said, these ones were going to be short again, and they are not. So it uses its whiskers to maintain its balance. It apparently slows down if they are cut off.
Who's cutting off? Who's cutting off? Raticate
Who's
whiskers.
abusing these fucking Raticate? Who is? Oh, you know what? Okay, I feel like, I think this should come up in a later Pokédex entry. I feel like it should be like when Raticate fight over territory, they bite off the whiskers of other Raticate so they can't then invade its territory. That would be a cool follow-up Pokédex entry. Watch it not happen because they're not as good as me.
Well, who is, mate? Who very much is. Um,
Its its hind feet are webbed. They act as flippers so it can swim in rivers and hunt for prey. That makes sense. It can learn surf.
what prey do you think it's hunting for? What's Raticate eat?
Presumably like Goldeen. If
Yeah,
it's in the water, Magikarp. Although everyone says Magikarp is just bone and scale, so I would guess like Goldeen.
yeah, Goldie.
Um,
Horsey.
Horsey, yeah, like low level. Maybe less so Horsey because like if a Kingdra found out, it'd fuck you up.
Mm.
Um, but I reckon Goldeen and Seeking probably it could take a Seeking. Um, maybe a Magikarp if it's stuck for options. I'm trying to think of like the water types in that early bit.
Do you think
There's
it's?
not
Do you
loads.
think a seal? Do you think it could take a seal?
I reckon Raticate would eat a seal. uh maybe Raticate would eat. Particularly like daring Raticate might eat a seal.
Mm.
Yeah.
And how big is a Raticate? I just want to just double check dead quick how big a Raticate is. It says
Uh
here
2 foot 4.
2'4". I mean that's. I mean you definitely wouldn't want to come across one of those whilst you're having a swim, would you?
No. Um Let me see how big a seal is. A seal is 3 foot 7. So it'd have to be like Raticate would have to gang up on the seal, I
Mm.
reckon.
But
You know?
Rat King,
Or Raticate would have to go and do it.
yeah.
But yeah, I reckon they have like I reckon they're probably like omnivores. Like it has prey, but it'll also eat like nuts and berries and shit that it
Mm.
finds. Because it does say like Rattata's a scavenger.
Yeah.
And the Rattata brings food back to the Raticate in Alola in particular. I don't think I think yeah, they're probably omnivores that'll eat pretty much anything,
Mm.
and like seafood is just an option.
Uh,
Right. Um, Stadium Professor says if attacked, it stands up on its hind legs, bares its fangs, and shrieked in an intimidating manner at its enemy.
right.
And I love we're coming back to Stadium Professor just harassing the Pokemon now.
Exactly
Like,
what I was going to say.
and then right.
Stadium Professor went, well, actually, if it's attacked, it will stand up on its hind legs, it bares its fangs, and it shrieks in an intimidating manner at its enemy. The other professor's being like, well, how do you know that, Stadium Professor?
It, Everyone else is like, well, I was nice to the Raticate, and it didn't attack me. And Stadium Professor's like, oh, I thought everyone knew this, Soz.
Yeah. Stadium Professor is doing that thing that boxers do where he rips off the Velcro with his teeth. he's like, oh, you should have seen what I was doing to this rat cake. I was battering it.
So for the next one, I think we're getting a little bit back into the dick swinging.
Oh,
We had a
okay.
nice reprise from that with Rattata. Gnaws on anything with its tough fangs. It can even topple concrete buildings by gnawing on them.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Um,
I,
Silver, pretty basic. Its whiskers help it to maintain balance. Its fangs never stop growing, so it gnaws to pare them down. We knew that from Rattata. Um, Crystal, back to the being able to swim. The webs on its hind legs enable it to cross rivers. It searches wide areas for food.
so
Back to concrete.
I never considered it as having like webbed feet.
I think I knew that, but maybe I just read because it doesn't look like it has red webbed feet in the picture. Um, but like I feel like I saw that in a Pokédex entry at some point, and I like because it's not something that obviously I thought of enough to bring up during this episode, but I did think of it like when I read it, I was like, yeah, I knew that. Like that is information I already had.
Mm.
Um,
But no, I never picked up on that.
yeah. Right, what we've got for Ruby and Sapphire
Right.
and Emerald are all the same.
Oh,
Raticate, sturdy fangs grow steadily. To keep them ground down, it gnaws on rocks and logs, may even chew on the walls of houses. That is very similar to Rattata, I think. Um, that could be the same Pokédex entry. Um,
um,
so Fire Red goes more into its webbed feet.
yeah.
Its rear feet have 3 toes each. They are webbed, enabling it to swim across rivers.
Because I already feel like Gen 3 Professor is a furry, I'm wondering if that's like a foot fetish thing.
Maybe, maybe that is correct. Um, Uses whiskers to maintain balance, slow down if they're cut off. No additional detail, such as what I offered. Um, Diamond and Pearl says it whittles its constantly growing fangs by gnawing on hard things. It can chew apart cinder walls.
Dick swinging.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, is cinder more tough than concrete?
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't know.
Cinder blocks are like considered like
Yeah,
they're like the main
are they
part of a
not? Are they
house.
still like blocks made of concrete? Is that not still concrete?
I'm pretty sure it is concrete. Um, but yeah, they're
Yeah,
they're like the middle of usually skyscrapers and stuff, aren't they?
yeah. A cinder block is concrete cast into blocks, so it's the same. It's the same. They just wanted to mix it up a bit. Is Diamond and Pearl Professor being like, well, I'm not going to write about the concrete walls, but I'm going to write about the cinder walls, which is the same
Yeah,
thing.
yeah,
Like, it's like, can I copy your homework? Yeah, but just change it enough
yeah.
that no one notices.
Yeah. I've never
Um,
I've never heard of it as a cinder wall before.
no, I've heard of, yeah, I would say like, you'd say like cinder blocks and like cinder blocks become a concrete wall
Yeah.
is how I would, I don't know. I don't work in construction.
What?
Uh, Northern in his with its tough fangs can topple concrete buildings. Whiskers help maintain balance. Fangs never stop growing. Whittles its constantly growing fangs by gnawing, can chew apart cinder walls again. Black and white too, again, I like this. This has got the added detail of, with its long fangs, this surprisingly violent Pokemon can gnaw away even thick concrete with ease. So that's like the same. Basically, every Pokedex entry has been it chews shit or it can swim, and this one is like, and it's surprisingly violent. So I think the Black and White 2 professors have also been fucking with the Raticate a little bit,
Yeah, that's what it
and
sounds like.
like one of them's learned its fucking lesson about messing with Raticate.
But it's been
Uh,
enough time between Gen 1 and Gen 4 that Gen 5 professors like I they've those who do not take notice of the past are doomed to repeat it. And
so
that's what they say that about, don't they? They say it very much about don't fuck with Pokemon.
yeah, they do. Yeah. Um, so X, Y, Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire, all stuff we've seen before. I think so. Sun and Moon have uh have entries for both regular Raticate and Alolan Raticate,
Mm,
which is pretty interesting. So Sun says its hind feet are webbed, so it's a strong swimmer. It can cross rivers and sometimes oceans. Interesting.
yeah.
Moon says its disposition is far more violent than its looks would suggest. Don't let your hand get too close to its face, as it could bite your hand clean off. I love the idea of some like, professor with a stump for a hand walking around like, no, 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 it was a Dragonite, I promise. And
I
it was
I
a
say I am I imagine them getting the work experience boy to go. Would you just mind like punching that
It was a
Raticate in the?
Lux Ray. It was a wild Lux Ray. It's fucking Raticate.
I mean, maybe that's what we've discovered about Sun and Moon Professor. They are a big
They're
old
dicks.
bullshitter.
Ultra Sun, people say it fled from its enemies by using its small webbed hind feet to swim from island to island.
Uh,
Ultra Moon again, you got someone hassling them. Its whiskers are essential for maintaining balance. No matter how friendly you are, it'll get angry and bite you if you touch its whiskers. So I think that could have tied into my suggestion, which is a headcanon for me now. Um, and then Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Hind feet are webbed, act as flippers so it can swim. Rivers and hunt for prey. We've already heard that one. And a Alolan Raticate. I think this again comes into the mission that you have to do around it.
mm,
Um, which I like. I like that they're thinking about how you'll interact with it in the story. Um, it forms a group of Rattata, which it assumes command of. Each group has its own territory, and disputes over food happen often. There, I think, would be a good place to do the thing about chewing the whiskers.
yeah.
And also, I like it forms a group of Rattata. Like, that isn't, like, that couldn't have been tied into, like, how much Rattata reproduce and overpopulate. Like, it forms, not produces. They've stopped being so graphic about them fucking all the time. But it forms a group. It like has a bunch of babies.
So
Um,
I imagined it like a gang.
yeah, a gang. Yeah, if only uh Alolan Raticate is in the one with Team Yell. I reckon it'd fit right in.
Oh yeah,
The football hooligan bad guys.
yeah.
Uh, this gourmet Pokemon is particular about the taste and freshness of its food. Restaurants where Raticate live have a good reputation.
That sounds
I think
that sounds like.
Alolan Raticate
Oh, go
would
on.
totally suit a chef's hat on his little fat face.
I feel like whoever Moon Professor is, because we've already established that they've got a bit of like Billy bullshit about them. It sounds like Moon Professor has got probably owns a restaurant which got a poor food hygiene rating and is now like, no, 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 no. I think you'll find that restaurants where Raticate live have a good reputation, so I think you can take that 3-star and put it in the bin. Thank you very much.
I think Moon Professor watched Ratatouille and then told everyone he'd done his homework, so just wrote about that film. And then
Yeah, yeah,
um I feel like Eradicate has pissed off the Ultra Sun Professor. It has an incredibly greedy personality. Its nest is filled with so much food gathered by Rattata at its direction, it can't possibly eat it all. Just like, don't fat shame Raticate,
Yeah,
please.
yeah. That
We
sounds
like our round boys.
sounds like something that like your mum would say to you. You're like, well, you can't
Yeah.
possibly eat all
Like, oh yeah, well I see that as a challenge. Fuck you very much.
that.
Um, Right, commands nests of Rattata. Different nests don't get along, whipping up severe fights over feeding grounds. Again, this is where my bite in the whiskers thing could have tied those together.
Well, Nintendo, get in touch with us, get us on payroll, and we will sort your franchise out.
I do like the chef angle that they're leaning into here because Alolan Raticate and Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee says it makes its Rattata underlings gather food for it, dining solely on the most nutritious and delicious fare, like it's a like it's a like a posh fancy chef,
Yeah,
uh,
like
but also mob boss.
well, I mean, you
Yeah.
can you can wear both of those proverbial hats, can you not? Uh,
I feel like Giovanni should have an Alolan Raticate chef
yeah,
in his army of Pokemon.
yeah. Get on it, Giovanni. Like, get
Yeah,
Mewtwo, put that in the bin, and get yourself an Alolan Raticate.
yeah, man. Um, and then Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl is more that we've already seen. So, shall we?
Go into the old Smogon.
Yeah,
Right
let's
here.
get that up.
Here we go. Um, just had a comment in the chat about you writing your own Pokédex entries, which um, I very much condone you doing that. If you,
I if oh, I was gonna say if I was better at drawing, but I can do it with these shit drawings and then see if I get better over time. I might make like a sister like Instagram account or something, right? Where it's my alternate Pokédex. So some of them will be the same, but with my own Pokédex
mm,
entries. But then Rattata would have an alternate uh evolution called Ratiking, which
mm,
you can't get, you have to catch wild because it has to evolve, as I described earlier. Galarian Meowth would have a different name, and Berserker would be a middle evolution. And like the ideas that I come up with as we go will be what I'll put in my alternate Pokedex, and the rest will just be normal.
yeah,
Like, but my idea of what I think their Pokedex entry should be. Uh, but having said that, I'm already late on everything I need to do for this show, so giving myself an additional project is not the one.
yes. If it,
Unless I cut back on some other shit.
that's the thing,
Um,
and the people who enjoy our content, I know for a fact would love that. But if you would love that,
I would
get
love that.
make it so that we've got more free time by subscribing to the Patreon, and then we can put
Yeah,
all these ideas into fruition. Once we're like, right, Talking Trubbish is paying our talking bills, we can be like, right, alternative Pokedex entries, Fakeamon, we can do,
yeah.
we can do in character deep dives, profiles, regions. We can do all that. We can do games. But at the minute, the Cosy lives, etc.,
Because he
etc.,
lives.
etc.
We like in order to have all of the time we need to do all of the things that we talk about doing, we would need to not have full-time jobs and probably also any hobbies.
I mean,
And like if we were making enough money on this podcast that we got to that point, that's when we'd definitely get sued by Nintendo.
oh gosh, right. Well, what a catch-22. But subscribe to the
All
Patreon in
right.
order to pay our future legal bills.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right,
Wouldn't that be nice? Right, let's have a look at this one.
right there it is. I like the little animation that's going on. It's
I do too. He's cute, isn't he?
yeah. I like how angry they are, but it's like they're just so kind of fluffy, and it just looks like so like a nickname for guinea pigs is the like furry potatoes, and I feel like that is very much what this looks like. Um,
That is very true, and I do love it. I do like that. Original Raticate, Kanto Raticate was, one of the, original series chunky boys. And when, Pikachu got all skinny later in
Hmm.
life, Raticate has stayed chunky
Hmm.
in Kanto form and got chunkier in Alolan form. I love this. We're leaning into our chunky boys and we're here for it.
Yeah, very much so. And they're both mice. So there's even more comparison. Uh, Raticate staying true to itself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's untiered though. I mean, it's unsurprisingly untiered for me. Like I'm not
Hmm.
surprised that people don't use it competitively.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that people don't use it competitively because, like, like we said before, it's got a couple of good moves, but none of them are strong enough to carry it on your team,
Mm,
I don't think. I think it's one of those ones that you use because you have a connection to it, because you like it, rather than because it's an especially powerful Pokemon.
yeah, like I mean, you saying that it reminded me of it's like if you had a Raticate, it almost reminds me a bit of right. So right, winds me up the rival hop from
Yeah.
but every time that right, I think part of the reason why it wound me up was one because it was like it's not the kind of rivalry I personally seek out, but I felt like every time I faced Hop, it's all like are they trying to frame me as the bad guy? Because
Yeah.
it's like Hop is using like Pokemon that Hopper's got a connection with, and it's like
Yeah.
that's the whole like narrative arc for Ash Ketchum, like, and it's like, but it's like Hop's not using Pokemon that are like good enough, but he's still using them
Yeah.
anyway, and he doesn't drop his dub wool out of it. I think at any point throughout you facing him, and it's like every time I battered Hop, and like every battle I thought was like pretty easy, but every time I was like, am I the bad guy here? Like, like what's going on?
Yeah. It was because that's like the storyline in the first generation where it's going, oh, you won because you love your Pokemon, you have a connection with them, and that's what other trainers just don't understand. And now, yeah, it's the other way around. And I don't mind that. Like I kind of don't care.
Mm,
Um, they're gonna do the story how they want to do it. I'm gonna ignore them, play the game how I want to do it.
yeah.
Um,
Here's an Eternatus, and it's like, why aren't I going to use this like skeleton dragon that's also poison type? But I have no connection to it at all. So let's have a look at Alolan Raticate, see what's going on there. Um, what's Alola Totem?
so the Alola Totem is the totem Pokemon is the one you battle in place of a gym, isn't it?
Ah, right. Because
So the
yeah, because
totem
that's
Pokemon.
because that's the generation that I skipped, Generation 6. Um, but now I've got it up. I love this animation for a Lowland Totem Raticate. It looks so silly.
It does, but I love it. Like I really it's such a like fun. I think it's a fun design. I like he's a little fat bouncy boy.
Oh yeah. He's very very. He reminds me a bit of are they called he looks a bit like a candy corn. Um, Um, I want to see if the other one
I want to
is
see if
is the same animation. I imagine, yeah, it will be. But yeah, I thought it'd be better to get the like stats up. So this again is untiered, which again I'm not surprised by. But you'd like to have thought that they might have put a tiny bit more effort into it, given that there might have been some people
yeah.
who were like excited about having a new Raticate.
Yeah, definitely. But I feel like they couldn't have made it so much better that people didn't people were like, well, what's the fucking point in the
Yeah,
um having the original?
yeah,
Like they couldn't make it too much better.
yeah.
So I understand why they kept it relatively modest.
Yeah, I mean it also makes me think like why didn't they just make normal Rattata like dark normal type, like you know because they like retroactively like put some dark types in. It's like why didn't you do that with Gen 1 anyway?
Yeah. Well, they didn't have dark types in Gen 1.
No, what I mean, so when they introduced dark type, didn't they retroactively make some of them dark type?
Yeah, but like I feel like I like the regional variants and I like the story that they tell with it and I like that they want it to be different. I think and I like that these ones like come out at night. So I
Mm,
think that makes it more relevant that it's a dark type.
yeah.
And I think um I didn't like that they retconned everything. We heard this with Pidgey. Like, I don't like that they retconned all of the bird types to be part normal, and now there's almost no single type flying types.
Mm,
Everything's dual with something. It's like some things can like be simple without being normal type. You know,
mm,
all adding a normal type does is makes it weak to psychic and fighting. Like, it doesn't make it good against anything.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Don't like.
Normal type is the most boring type, unless you're in the card game. Uh, it is quite good for the card game.
Yeah, fair.
Uh, um, but yes. So do you want to give it our Trubbish rating?
I think, and I feel like this could be, I feel like I want to give it a little bit more than Ratata because there's more in the show,
Yeah.
slightly, not loads, but more.
Mm,
Um, and I do like this funky, chunky baby
yeah.
that we've got here, but I'm mad that I came up with a more interesting bit of lore that was not acknowledged. And so I feel like I can't give it much more. So I feel like he's stuck at a five.
Yeah, that's what I would have given it. I would have given it a 5. Um, so there you go, Nintendo. If you want to increase its rating to higher than a 5, you need to employ us or at least Kirsty in order to expand its lore, and then we might boost it up. But yeah, I'd give it a 5 for the same reason. I do think it's better than Ratata. Um, like design wise, lore wise, it's like it's in the anime more. Like as I seem to recall, like using one, like it's got hyperfang. Like I mean, obviously, like I think if you have, does Rattata learn hyperfang or is it just Raticate that learns hyper? You know, like by normally, but like it has hyperfang, which is like it's like signature move, and I would argue that if Rattata can learn hyperfang, it's more associated with Raticate anyway. Um, but
Yeah,
I find it difficult to give it higher than a 5.
yeah. Like it doesn't have loads going for it.
Yeah,
Um, like I like the fun stories that you can build around it, but I feel like they were not made enough use of in, the content that we have.